Troma was in its infancy, and Michael Herz and I were making fine movies like Squeeze Play and Waitress, I believe. We were sort of developing the aroma du Troma, and whilst we were doing that, in order to pay the rent, I took production jobs on movies like Rocky, Saturday Night Fever, and the Final Countdown really was a way to try to learn. We were still learning, so this was a way to learn about the movie business and maybe get a foothold in the establishment. Troma put an ad in the trades, full-page ad saying, hire Lloyd Kaufman for production services, makes a nickel look like a dollar, or something like that. And Peter Douglas called me. He needed a budget for what became the Final Countdown. And the idea was we were going to do it the Troma way, and we were going to do it for $1 million, and hopefully we'd get Kirk to be in it, and it was kind of this idealistic, really independent film.
The United States of America falls under attack. Our job is to defend her, the past, present, and future.
And then eventually we had this amazing breakfast with Kirk Douglas, and Kirk was grilling me pretty hard, because Peter, I think, was 19. I don't know, he was very young. You know, I was the supposed more experienced person, and Kirk was giving me hell. But after that breakfast, I think it was shortly thereafter that Kirk said he was definitely doing it, doing Final Countdown, and my guess is that it was his power that made this a reality. I believe Don Taylor got the job because, you know, he had a reputation for getting things done, and you know, he did a lot of crappy movies that got finished. I just remember meeting him the first time, and it's, you know, having seen where he plays Elizabeth, the father of the bride. I don't know if it was the first time, but I remember we were scouting the Nimitz, and his stomach is out to here, and I'm thinking, holy Christ, this guy was Elizabeth Taylor's husband in that movie, and he was so handsome. What the hell? And right there, when that first time we went on location with the guy, and he's, huggermonger, everything, he had one phrase, huggermonger. And I remember everybody saying, oh, that's, you know, they all thought it was so adorable. You know, all the people were like, I said to myself, you know, I was in no position to suggest that, you know, anything's wrong, but he was just a basic flame-out. Getting permission to shoot aboard the Nimitz was a major undertaking. Again, Peter was great. We went to a lot of meetings with a lot of people, but the fact that there's no question that if Kirk Douglas had not been in this movie, had it been Jimmy Farentino as the captain, I don't think that this would have happened. It was Kirk Douglas that people trusted, and that people felt this will be a good representation of the Navy, the U.S. Navy. It was 1979, so, you know, the disaster called Vietnam was still pretty fresh, and, you know, they weren't taking any chances, and they were willing to go with Kirk.
Captain's on the bridge.
Captain, CIC reports a surface contact bearing 350 degrees at 130 miles.
So we were supposed to shoot the whole movie on the Nimitz, but the Nimitz had something not unlike what happened at 3 Mile Island. So they had to keep the Nimitz at dock for a lot of the time that we were supposed to be filming there. So we filmed quite a bit at dock, which, considering the interiors took up a lot of the film, no problem. But when we finally went out to sea, obviously we had to film totally around their air ops, and I had to be the expert on the Nimitz. The Nimitz has got 6,500 people on it. I had to learn. This was a nightmare because I live in New York City, where everything's on a grid. You know, 1st, 2nd, 3rd Avenue. You know, you can be a monkey and find your way around New York. I had to find my way around the Nimitz. And from the time we went into pre-production, I was trying to memorize how to get around on that ship. I think I knew that ship better than a lot of the Navy guys who were on the ship. If you spoke to one guy in one department, you know, in sick bay, if the guy's over there, he wouldn't know how to get to the post office in the Nimitz. It's an amazing floating metropolis. The fuck of it was, were it not for Kirk, there was some scenes that would have been shot down while we were at sea. The Bozo director was going to shoot inside, and I remember we were kind of upset about it. Everyone's all ready to shoot, and Kirk says, "What are you doing? We're out at sea. We should shoot this scene on the deck. Lloyd, get everybody here. And then we all went up we did it on the deck, and he was absolutely right.
Captain.
Yes?
Sir, is it possible that this could be part of some secret naval maneuver?
Of course not.
The reason that movie is good is Kirk Douglas and Peter Douglas, and they kept on being they're the ones that made made sure that we shot the Zeros and the F-14s, because I would have left. If we didn't do that, I wouldn't have stayed on the movie. The director wanted to do that stuff in stock footage or process shots or whatever, and Peter and Kirk stayed with the location concept and trying to get the real, the Zero and the F-14 in the same frame, and it was great. The film is really due to their instincts. The squadron, the F-14 guys, gave me this, 1979, but it was beautifully framed. All the Jolly Rogers, the F-14 troop, signed this thing. But because Troma is Troma, it was hanging on the wall. And as I was leaving for this interview, I was looking for it, and I thought, gee, I thought it used to be on the walls. And I happened to mention it to somebody in passing and said, oh yeah, I think I saw something like that behind a radiator. So this is, unfortunately, it's damaged, but I still have it. Well, there came a time when Don Taylor fell off the wagon, I'll tell you that. It's not really fair, he's dead, but with all due respect, it was, we kind of had to take over on dailies, and, things went on that, would not happen with a director who was doing it the right way. Don Taylor brought on a crew of absolute shitheads. I remember picking them up I personally went to pick them up, figuring how nice will that be? I'll go, I'm the associate producer or production manager or whatever. I'll go and pick them up rather than send people. And they were just, where's the food, where's the booze, They had no interest in the movie, none whatsoever. And the real obscenity was Peter had arranged for the crew to go out on the Nimitz to test. They were paid to test. They didn't want to test. They didn't want to go out to sea. They were paid for it, but they wouldn't do it. But the dailies come back the first day of filming, and it's up in the captain's booth, the tower, whatever it is. It looks like it's all burnt out. We could have shot it and someone's behind. It didn't matter. And then we had this big thing where we had to fire the crew, and of course Peter was off hang gliding on that particular day, so it fell to me to, I believe, be the jolly messenger. And I remember Kirk and Ann and I were together in a room, and I made some remark about, well, maybe the producer should be here, but I said something, and I think Kirk was going to hit me. He looked like he was going to hit me. He was really pissed.
You're saying that these are both photographs of Pearl Harbor on December the 6th, 1941? Yes, sir.
Jimmy Farentino was a whiner. He was very upset because there was something wrong with his bed. The bed didn't work. There was a spring. There was a spring that came out from the mattress and apparently scratched him. The making of the Final Countdown seemed to be too much about that, too much about the vegetarian this and getting the gaffer's truck onto the Nimitz so that he could charge more or whatever the reason was. I don't believe it had anything to do with making a better movie because there were ways to solve it. So much of it was about where people were going to eat. Catherine Ross didn't like the chairs in Key West for the catering. It wasn't enough about making the movie. And if it weren't for Kirk and Peter Douglas, I don't think the film would have had any merit whatsoever. You get so much crap in this business. You get so much slipping and sliding. And of course, Kirk broke the blacklist, and Kirk is a major, major hero. He's bigger than life, no matter how you look at it. He is responsible for some of the greatest movies in film history. And I think he had assumed that I was one of the bullshitters. And I remember at one point he said something to me in pre-production. This was when we were still working in his office out of Bryna. He said something to me like, "Lloyd, I can't believe you're Jewish. You're too stupid." And I remember telling my father, I said, Kirk said, and my father said, my father loved it. He agreed with Kirk. But I think as time went on, he realized that I was a straight shooter, that I told him the truth, and that he got the truth, and I was right. I was never wrong. He could not find that I was wrong. In fact, people told me that production managers don't last very long with him. But we had points in the movie, and he kept me on for the whole time. And he stayed in touch, or I stayed in touch with him. We became good buddies. He always told me how proud he was of Troma being independent, and I learned a lot from him, too. I learned a hell of a lot from that guy. a tremendous amount about not being afraid to fight for what you believe in.
Believe me, Senator, this carrier is capable of handling any attack should it occur.
One carrier against a whole fleet? Just what kind of an idiot you take me for,
Senator,
Captain?
calm down.
The hell with you!
Charles Durning was a prince. He was great. He couldn't have been nice. He was a team player. He always tried to rally the troops. He didn't gripe. He just you know, he was more than just doing his job. He was definitely would hang out with the crew and morale builder because there was a lot of morale. Yeah, there were issues of trying to keep spirits up.
You know, from what I've read, your manuscript is very good. I mean, really very good.
Thank you. You a historian, Mr. Lansky?
Well, I'm a little bit of everything, I guess.
Martin Sheen was great. He was terrific. He had, I think, come off a heart attack, and he had to work out. And I remember there were a couple of times where he was nice enough to move the workout session to fit our shooting schedule. I remember, though, he had 2 days to go and do the voiceover for Apocalypse Now. How cool is that, right? So it's kind of it's history, it really is.
Get CAG up here.
Yes, sir.
I want to talk to Sink-Pack Fleet.
Captain, we're down across the board. Antennas check out, but we're off the air.
War. We're at war.
I think Peter and I did that just to goose, you know, just to sort of fuck with Kirk a little bit. You know, we didn't tell him. I just showed up as that part. But I remember, again, after it was over, Kirk said something to me like, Lloyd, you're not a good actor, but you're a better actor than you are a producer. Thanks, Kirk.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin. The enemy bombers appeared over Pearl Harbor at about 7:55 a.m. A dawn attack.
It's a good film. Film is very good. But again, I think what makes it great is there's no film like it. No other film has Zero planes fighting F-14s. It's you know, certainly a movie to be proud of, and one that I used as film school, and convinced me that I was not going to make it in the world of Hollywood establishment. There was no way I could get along with any of these people, really. I could not possibly talk the talk. You know, people are much smarter than they appear. They don't have to be lazy. They can go the extra mile. They can get the zeros in the plane in one shot. They can shoot outdoors on the deck. Yes, it's a little windy or whatever, and you have to lug all the equipment up there, but do it. You know, the film lives, not forever, but for, you know, here it is, 24 years later, and still going to have probably going to have a new life. And again, I thank Kirk Douglas and Peter Douglas for giving me the opportunity to go to film school and to give me the responsibility. This is the actual, the original cast book from 1979. It has all of the contracts. It's got everybody from Martin Sheen, Catherine Ross, down to the day players. And in those days, day players were $275 a day, I think. I believe now they're $2 billion a day. Here is a photo here of the party that was held in Washington for Final Countdown at the home of Elizabeth Taylor and Senator Warner. And there's a very rare photograph of Michael Hers. He's the other founder of Troma. He never permits himself to be photographed, but this is extremely rare. So your DVD will have something that nobody has. And Michael will be furious. So all here, and I somehow managed to find it in the squalor of the Troma building in New York City. I found this book. It's astounding that I could find it.
SH-3 approaching from the right. Have a nice day.
I'm Commander Emery Brown, U.S. Navy, retired.
Stand clear. Catch one.
My name is Alan Mullen, and at the time that the movie was made, I was a lieutenant in the United States Navy.
My name is Brian Tyndall. I left the Navy as a lieutenant.
Most guys know me as Fox in the Navy, and I joined the Navy in 1965, and when we made the Final Countdown, I was lieutenant commander.
My name is Bill McCluskey, and at the time I was Lieutenant JG.
My name is Jim Houston, and I was a lieutenant when I was in VF-84, and we did the filming of the movie.
Jolly Rogers. I will tell you that that was my squadron command, and I was blessed When you speak in terms of pilots, you have different skill levels. You've fundamental pilot. Then you have a highly skilled pilot. And then you get into what you refer to as an aviator. And we think of it this way. That's one that really feels, becomes one with the airplane. And I was blessed to have in my squadron some true aviators.
It's, you know, one of the great things about being part of that squadron is it's sort of a legendary squadron. It goes way back to World War II, and it's a very memorable insignia.
Camaraderie that you build up with the guys that you're flying with, really lifelong friendships.
We had a family, and they had a mission, and they had a sense of understanding of that mission.
But I think it was kind of an unusual assemblage of people, because when you look back and you go sort of down the list of who was in the squadron, really, really extraordinary people almost across the board. And wasn't it that year that we got the award as the best fighter squadron in the Navy?
Yeah. The absolute best in the business.
Eagle Control, they blew it to bits. Nimitz hit the fuel tank.
Evening, Nimitz, this is the captain. All hands, very excellent work this morning.
Life on a carrier is a spectacular thing. You can't imagine what it's like when you see an aircraft carrier with 5,000 men actually in operation. It's like a choreography that is so precise. We're talking down to inches in a very high-tech, intense, dangerous environment. And it's pulled off because you have young kids out there, 18-year-old kids, that are made into men because of the environment. Whenever we have a launch cycle, you have so much time in which to clear the deck of aircraft, because you have all the aircraft that you're going to launch, then you have to reposition the other aircraft so that you can do the recovery operation.
It's an incredible ballet of men and machinery and noise and violence. It's frightening, you know, when you first go out there until you understand how it's all choreographed.
They taxi the aircraft up over the jet blaster deflector just as soon as the one ahead of you is launched. It comes down, he brings you forward, puts you on the catapult, brings you into tension.
But there's this holdback. There's this just really hard tension where the catapult's trying to go. The holdback fitting is not letting it go.
And when you're set and ready to go, you scan all your instruments, you look down at him and give him a salute, then you brace yourself and you're set. And the next 2.5 seconds of your life are out of your control. Carrier landing that's a totally different experience. The heart rate of the pilot is actually higher when he's making his carrier approach for landing than it was when he was over North Vietnam having SAM shot at him. It's not a matter of, am I going to survive this landing? It's a matter of just how deadgum good is it going to be.
At night, it goes from being fun and safe to being about the hardest thing in the world to do.
No horizon, no outside lights, no reference to anything except a little tiny deck ahead of you.
You could literally land the aircraft on the ship in 0-0 conditions without ever seeing it. It's tense, but you can do it.
Zulu 5 Bravo, this is Victory 210.
We had new airplanes. In fact, when the F-14s that we flew were delivered to VF-84, we were peeling the wrappers off of them. They were so new.
Well, the F-14 had the ability to morph. That wasn't even a word in those days, but it could morph from a low-speed airplane to a high-speed configuration.
It's a wonderful airplane. It's got such tremendous capabilities. I had the opportunity to be the original carrier suitability test pilot for the F-14 program, so I took it from the very beginning all the way through up until the time that I had command of the squadron.
Emory was familiar with the media and how to put together movies because they made periodic movies during the development of the airplane.
Well, we were preparing to go on deployment. About a 6-month deployment was scheduled coming up. But I called Dick Milligan to say, I'm getting ready to take command of my squadron. I know that it's difficult to find this, but here's an opportunity. If you want to do this, if you want to update the film at the Smithsonian. Do we need to do that? And he said, no, we're in good shape there, but let me tell you what we do have. It's an interesting situation. He said, we haven't been able to put this film together for 2 years, but Peter Douglas, son of Kirk Douglas, has a full feature-length motion picture that he wants to produce. Shoot, that sort of set a little spark. This is an opportunity for us to put together a film that might be a recruiting boon to the Navy. We were always doing anything we could to promote the Navy. It's a wonderful, wonderful life, a wonderful career, a wonderful mission, but you've got to get the right people into it. Okay? In order to do that, you have to expose them. So I asked him to send me a copy of the script. He did. We read the script. We saw great potential in it.
Two of us went out there to a meeting with the director, Don Taylor, and after that we kind of coordinated the Confederate Air Force participation, which were the T-6s that we used for the Zero simulation.
But the match of the fighters with totally different speeds and totally different environments and weaponry, that's never been done before. It presented a lot of difficult challenges for filming, actually do it, and to sell it right. And so we told him, we really need to be able to have as much license as we can with respect to the script and to the terminology and the type of scenes that are going to be done. And it was just, the agreement was right there on the spot. He said, you've got it. Now, let me tell you that we had another situation here. There's a lot of complexities that come in. First thing is, we were getting ready for deployment.
When we were detailed, if you will, to go down to Key West and do another 3, 4, 5 weeks of filming down in Key West, that came out of our at-home time. So it was difficult to also, to go home and explain that I was going to be gone another 5 weeks, making the movie.
And just said, hey guys, we're going to help shoot a movie down in Key West. It's going to have Kirk Douglas in it and James Ferrantino, and we're going to go down and do the flying scenes. Of course, we said, wow, Key West, we're going to be involved with the movie. That'll be pretty cool. Showed up at Key West, and there was somebody to meet us and said, here's your hotel room key, go see Vic at the pool. Vic, he's this little short Italian-looking guy with a big belly and a Speedo on that had a white envelope with $100 bills stuffed in inside of his Speedo, and he went up and said, I'm Bill McCluskey, I'm gonna be here for 3 days, and he said, okay, $150 a day per diem, which to us was, two house payments in those days.
We felt like, this is like, we've died and gone to heaven. This is it. We're surrounded by actors and actresses. We're flying, in Key West and having a great time. And then they're giving us money, cash money. How can this be? There's something illegal about this. So it's great. And then you have lunch, of course, and it's like you're eating at the Ritz or something. It's unbelievable. We're used to having, a turkey sandwich that somebody's been, sitting on for 2 weeks. And rather than having us use cabs or whatever, they had vans that were there. And they were driven by Teamsters. Which we didn't know, we just knew that they were guys, but they were guys that were generally from Los Angeles. We thought it was odd. You fly somebody to Key West to drive a van. They hire you, come out from California to drive in a van? Yeah. How much money do you make? He told him, and it was substantially more than the F-14 pilots were making. And that's when you start going, hey, wait a second, there's something out of balance here when a guy driving a van is making more than these people out there risking their lives every day.
Why the hell are we playing with these guys?
The remarkable thing about being able to put this motion picture together was the cadre that we had in that squadron. But we had some of the absolute finest skilled aviators, and they knew exactly what they were doing. They had confidence and faith in each other, and we had it in them. And so there wasn't any question about the fact that we were going to be able to pull off any kind of shot that was necessary to do.
From a pilot point of view, David Jones, who
he
was the director of aerial photography. He was a great photographer, he was a good organizer, he was a lot of things, but he was a damn good helicopter pilot. He was a very good helicopter pilot.
He did Apocalypse Now,
helicopter
all the helicopter scenes, he directed that. And he told me when he said, we're gonna have this project, and they told me they wanted to have it done in 10 days. He said, we spent 4 months doing those helicopter scenes in Apocalypse Now, and he said, I don't know how we're going to get this done in the time we had.
We briefed and planned every single one of these shots. It was the critical adjunct. It had to be done right. And so we've sat down with Don Taylor, all of our pilots, we'd sit down around the table and planned that mission.
And we'd have a room, and we'd sit there with our flight suits on and brief, and here's what we got to do, here's the scene we're trying to get, and we'd make sure we knew how we were going to do it, the altitudes, airspeeds, angles, and what we're trying to simulate, and off we'd go.
So it was almost like briefing for a regular mission, and trying to figure out where these airplanes needed to go at this particular time to have people get what they needed on film, you know, and it turned out to be quite a challenge.
The whole theory, I guess, of the movie and the concept was to show that possibly one nuclear-powered carrier with the air power that was on that ship, you know, could have taken out the whole Japanese fleet. So I think Don wanted to show the tremendous performance differences. In World War II, they take all day to climb to 20,000 feet, and then if they sacrifice that altitude for performance to go down and go after some low flyers, boy, you know, it was half a day to get back up there. Whereas we go down, take care of them, and go right back, you know, in minutes and seconds.
And so the six of us would then take what he wanted and try and convert that into something that we could actually do. And that was a trick.
They would take the film, fly it to New York, and bring it back the next night, and we would view the film the next night that we had shot the day before, which meant that we would go fly, shoot the film, then the next day we would go fly and shoot again. That night we would see the film from the day before. So you could see that if you messed up something, you were 2 days away from fixing it.
They had cameras mounted on airplanes. We were flying up next to a helicopter, and they were taking pictures. And then the outtakes came back, and it wasn't what they wanted.
We weren't able to get the dynamics of the dogfight or the aerial engagements with the helicopter.
The helicopter was more or less stationary or in place. And then we had the T6s or simulating the zeros that are coming through the scene at about 150 or 60 knots. And then we had the F-14s coming through at 250 or 300 knots. So from my perspective, it was like trying to get three pool balls to collide on a table simultaneously. And that is very, very difficult to make happen.
Luckily, they made the decision to contract Frank Pine and from out west, their Tall Man's Aviation came out with his B-25. Could do 200 knots, and now we're starting to cook because he could stay along with us, and we could maneuver the F-14 because of its great slow-speed maneuverability.
Now you're only trying to get two pool balls to hit on the table, and that is a much easier problem to have happen. In fact, we were able to do it almost 1 time out of 5.
Yeah. So then we had 2 weeks left to shoot the rest of it, and it started to come together really well.
We assumed it would be hard. I mean, look at the scene that, by the boat where they went screaming by at sea level at, I don't know how fast were you guys going? Do you remember, Bear?
I was just hanging on.
Bear was on the wing.
I was too afraid to look.
You could not have been more than 75 feet off the water. Could not have been. And that's really fast and really low, and with a guy on your wing. It was really dramatic. It's a good scene. It worked out very well.
I was assigned to do that scene, to fly over the yacht, and we had Dave Jones on board the yacht. In fact, I called Dave. How'd that one look, Dave? He said, oh, that was pretty good, you know. He said, you looked a little high coming over. Can you get it? I said, Dave, that's it. I said, we're not going down any lower than that. That's as low as I'm going. You know, at that speed, I figured we'd pushed ourselves to the absolute limits.
But we were young, we were aggressive, and we wanted to do the job right. We wanted to produce something that we were going to be proud of, and if that meant flying low to a limit, we were going to find that limit, which is what young people do.
And for those who are aficionados of this kind of film and who really care about the detail, look at the difference between the missile shots in The Final Countdown and the missile shots you see in movies like Top Gun, which are just bogus. I mean, they're out there and they got a little model. You can probably see the string if you look hard enough. And then they have this enormous explosion, like a nuclear explosion when this airplane blows up. Completely ridiculous.
Yeah. You know what they're speaking about? They were going to do this missile shoot with models or some kind of simulation. We persuaded them to let us take a camera with us. And Jim took the camera, and they educated him on how to use it. And we were going to do an actual missile firing exercise down at the Atlantic Fleet Firing Range, or weapons range in Puerto Rico. And so up we went, got the shot, and it went into the movie. It was perfect.
I was the one that was in that scene where you do a pass and you fly under the Japanese Zero and then you pull up in front of him. In Navy parlance, that's called thumping somebody. And you're really not supposed to do that because it's very disconcerting to the person being thumped. And it could also really do some damage. And we're talking to him on the radio, how you doing? Okay, how you doing? Okay. And all of a sudden, after we pass him, there's nothing. He's not responding. Was he there? What happened to him? Well, as it turns out, we talked to the guy later, Archie, I think was his name, said, when you flew under me and flew up, the jet wash was so dramatic, it pulled the headset off of my head and flew it out the back of the airplane. I couldn't talk to anybody. You hear so many things about what people from Hollywood are like and film people and all that, and you just, a lot of, I think, average people think of them as basically not that professional and kind of not that organized and not disciplined and kind of crazy people. Not my experience at all. I was really impressed.
They blended in with us and they became part of our family, as a matter of fact. I believe to a substantial degree, we became a part of theirs.
We learned as much about them, I think, as they did about us. And they're very hardworking people, and they play hard, but they work hard too.
I remember a little bit of friction at first because they thought they could just go where they wanted on the flight deck, and they were going to be able to dictate when different airplanes were taking off and for what they needed. And then they ran into the world's greatest dictator, called the captain of a Navy vessel, who said, no, it doesn't work like that out here.
I can recall talking to the sound director, and his comment to me, he said, this is amazing. He said, we've got to make sure we get all this and record it, because he said what these guys are doing out here and the conditions they're living under, not that they're bad, but they're just hard. He just said, we need to make sure we document this so everybody, in the civilian world can see. I think the best example of that was during the general quarters filming there when we were loading weapons, and this is really the way it was. When they were filming that was for a competitive exercise. They didn't just put on that general quarters drill for the film crew.
When you speak of Martin Sheen and Kirk Douglas, you're talking about total pros that have been around this industry forever, and they adapt to anything.
Kirk Douglas was great. I gave him a tour of the F-14 and showed him the whole thing, let him sit in it, and really nice guy, a very personable, warm person. James Ferrantino was great. Martin Sheen. Charles Durning, when we were down at the, whatever hotel that is in Key West, he would often sit at the bar, but if he saw anybody from the squadron in a flight suit or whatever, immediately he'd say, let me buy you a drink. And he'd sit down and just start talking to you, and just a very, very nice fellow.
We swung it, Laurel. How about that? We really swung it.
Did you tell him you were sleeping with me?
What? Laurel, I wish I was.
The other myth, of course, is that actors and actresses are just arrogant and mean-spirited and they don't care a bit about you. Again, not my experience at all, with one exception. It was the end of the day, 4:30, 5 o'clock, and everybody's back at the hotel. We're sitting out on the patio with the director. Nice guy. But we're sitting there just shooting the breeze, maybe four Navy guys and him. Catherine Ross walks into the lobby, and she sits down in a couch just on the other side of the glass doors, just sitting there, doing absolutely nothing. And we said, this is our big chance. We've wanted to meet her officially, and just say hi, because then everybody says, did you ever meet Catherine Ross? We go, oh, yeah, we absolutely met her. So we say, would you go in, just ask her to step out for a second? We just want to say hi. So after a couple of minutes, maybe 3, which is a lot longer than we thought it should have been, he comes back out, closes the French doors, and sits back down with us. And he says, no. And we said, well, no what? He said, she doesn't want to meet you. Well, one of the guys who was sitting there said, really? We'll see about that. The next day we're out there flying around. He had the other airplane come over with the guy in the back seat with a camera. He says, okay, you ready? Yeah. He says, roll it. He puts it up, and he puts a sign up in the cockpit. Okay, got it. And then they went on and filmed whatever scene they were filming. So then the next day in the dailies, here we go. We're sitting there in this big conference room. Turn out the lights. Here come the dailies. Up comes the first piece of film. F you, Catherine Ross. We didn't want to meet you anyway. And she's sitting there right in the front row. And you can just see the steam rising out of the people.
Hold observation position. Dispatching A6 tanker for refueling.
There's a scene in the movie where the F-14s are going to refuel, and Dave Butler, who was the cameraman who was in the very tail of this B-25, is shooting the nose of my airplane out. And at one point, he reached out with his toe and waved to me to fly the airplane up closer, and he wanted to touch the end of the refueling probe with his foot. Well, and I kept shaking my head because airplanes, when they fly, they build up a static charge. So I knew that if he touched the probe with his foot, he was going to get a shock. But he was insistent, you know, he really wanted to do this. So I knew it wouldn't hurt him. It's high volts, but low amps or whatever. I mean, I knew it wasn't going to kill him or anything. It was just kind of smart. So I kind of shrugged and I pushed the airplane up close, and he reached out in the air and actually touched the end of the refueling probe with his foot. Kind of launched back up into this camera airplane, and I think he showed up later with curly hair or something, and we had a great laugh about it later.
That's the first thing anybody says. First question, who was that?
Who was that idiot? Who was that crazy man?
Sort of this myth in the Navy now. There's this mythological concept that we almost flew into the water, you know, and died.
I was just upstairs talking to a friend of mine. He said, how many times have they asked you about that scene? And right away I knew what he was talking about.
Everybody that has seen the movie, that's the first thing they say, oh God, that, you know, the airplane hit, oh my gosh, he almost hit the water. No, he didn't.
Many times I've been told that I was trying to kill myself and my backseater on that flight, which wasn't the case.
This is Fox Farrell. Have you forgotten? He's the best pilot in the Navy.
As we go down to the water, David brings the water in with the zoom lens and created this effect that we're going to fly right into the water, which is what we were trying to show. We pulled out probably 100 feet. I didn't tell Emery about it or anybody.
On film, it looked scary. In his hands, it wasn't. It was a brilliant, beautiful piece of flying.
Peter Douglas got up and he said, Fox, that'll sell a lot of tickets, Fox. Great job. And Emery's looking at me like, what did you...
But I'll tell you a little secret about this, and listen to this when you watch this particular scene in the film. The editor took Fox's wife, had her scream as if she were in terror watching her husband about to crash, and he recorded that, and then he recorded the jet engine winding, spooling up, and he blended the two of them. Listen to it when you see that scene.
Emery said to me, he said, I don't think we'll show that daily to the Admiral. He said, we'll wait till that comes out in the release.
And who told you we did that?
I confess.
He wouldn't have understood.
Because of a perspective issue, it looked way worse than it really
so
was.
I know.
Isn't that your story that you're sticking to?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it was just like a little surprise for the Admiral. You just want to show them something. You know, you show them everything, they've seen it all. Well, let's show them a little something special. So,
and we just thought that it would be better for that to go in the actual film for the premiere, and that would be an opportunity for the Navy and the world to see it. And until such time, that was inappropriate for anybody to be concerned about it.
That's a nice way to put it.
The night of the premiere, the Chief of Naval Operations was there, and a lot of high-ranking Navy officials, and we had a reception afterwards, and Kirk Douglas and all the folks that were involved in the motion picture were there at the reception. Kirk Douglas said to me, he said, you know the Chief of Naval Operations. I said, well, actually, sir, no, I don't.
I don't know.
But it's a pleasure to meet you, Admiral. And the Admiral turned to me and he said, you guys did one hell of a job. So that was just a beautiful job. So we're gonna get some really good showcasing of the F-14 and the Navy and naval aviation and the Nimitz. And how low did he go? And I mean, it was literally that kind of a flow. And I said, well, sir, 100 feet, but it was well controlled all the way. He said, well, it looked great.
We've got an incredible opportunity here. We know where all the mistakes are going to be made for the next 40 years, and you've got the power to correct them.
Strike Force, this is Strike Leader. Return to base. Mission aborted. Mission aborted? But we can see them. They're going to let the Japs do it again.
To think about that premise, and your first thought is, this is hokey. You got to portray the power of the F-14 the advanced technology and the capability that we had at any time to stop Pearl Harbor. I mean, we could have done it. We could have gone in with 2 F-14s and destroyed their fleet, you know? But what do you do?
Oh, well, that's the classic question.
I have stood at the Arizona Memorial. It's a powerful experience to stand on that memorial and to look off and see where the Zeros and where the Japanese aircraft came in. There was no way in the world that you would have want to allow that to happen.
I can't imagine how any naval officer could stand by and allow ships to be sunk and men to be killed if he had the power to prevent it.
So I'd assume you're there and you better do something about it. And I would have gone and wiped out the Japanese fleet. That's what I would have done.
Absolutely would have shot them down.
Of course. We were in a parallel universe, weren't we? It didn't matter what happened in the other one.
But the fact that it did happen and the fact that it changed the course of the world, no, I would not stop Pearl Harbor. I would think that the sacrifice of those Navy men and the women that were there was vital to the state of the world today. It brought our country together. It gave us a sense of urgency, but it also gave us a sense of what's right and what's wrong. And it gave us a sense that we can never allow something like that to ever happen again. And of course, it ultimately projected us into stopping what was going on in Europe. So no, I would pull back.
What's the matter with you?
He's long been the weakest of the group.
We've been carrying him for years.
It's difficult to take care of these kids and to educate them appropriately, you know?
Yeah.
But once again, my whole theory on that is I felt like we made a tremendous sacrifice, but that's what military men have done through history. You make a tremendous sacrifice in order for the future of your nation and all of the people and all of the world to be better. So that's why I say it's, I would have let it go.
No, of course not. What a bunch of nonsense.
They can't agree with me.
Nice speech. Wrong in every regard.
See, I don't even believe that he would have done what he said he was going to do, even though intellectually and analytically, I think you are correct. Yeah. If I put you in the position of the CO of the Nimitz in that case, if that could ever possibly happen, I don't believe that you would be able to do that.
Well, you're absolutely right. There's no way we could have done that.
Especially without knowing that you're going back.
Intellectually, the decision is no. From the military viewpoint and from the leadership viewpoint, all of us would have been in there shooting everything we could shoot.
We changed his mind again.
Sure. Yeah, see? We brought him halfway.
That's why we made him the skipper, so he's so malleable. That's why.
A bunch of us went to the theater and watched the movie and, stood up and cheered at the end of it, waited to the very last credit because I think the very last credit had our names on it. So it was exciting for a bunch of young kids.
I thought it was an effective movie. I thought it was good.
But I love the movie. I always, the more times I see it, the more I kind of get into the whole concept of what went on, and it turned out very well.
To take this science fiction film and to make it professional and make it literally believable, and pull that off, and I think that we did that. I really do think we did that. And so that kind of opened the doors, and it did. It showcased the F-14, and it showcased the Navy, naval aviation, it showcased the Nimitz and our air wing and all the aircraft that were involved with it. And it basically told the world, said, in a realistic manner, look at this. This is what your fleet has the capability to do.
Hold it. What's happening? Looks good.
On December the 6th, 1980, the nuclear-powered attack aircraft carrier USS Nimitz, with a crew of 5,000 men and a strike force of 90 aircraft, was on a routine mission in the Pacific when it encountered a storm unlike any ever recorded and disappeared.
Captain, we're down across the board. Antennas check out, but we're off the air.
Any word from our destroyers?
We aren't getting anything except some code transmissions in the 200-meter band. Otherwise, we're dead as a doornail.
Ops, what's our radar picture?
Radar shows us clear, sir.
Can't you see that Russian trawler?
I have the signal officer on deck, but no visual sighting, sir.
All of us know that movement through time is possible. Einstein proved it. There are forces in the universe which we're only now just beginning to understand. I mean understand through science, not superstition. There are black holes in space, antimatter, curved space. Things that are as strange to us as electricity would have been to people in the Middle Ages, or this ship in World War II.
What's happening here? Who are you people?
Are we at war? Is that what happened?
Splash to zeros. I say again, splash to zeros.
We've got an incredible opportunity here. We know where all the mistakes are going to be made for the next 40 years, and you've got the power to correct them.
I've got planes out there.
Those planes give us all a second chance. We're a bunch of damn fools if we don't take it.
Those men have enough knowledge among them to build the atom bomb. Reach the moon years before it should have happened.
Is that a terrifying prospect, Captain? Or a tempting one?
On December the 6th, 1980, the nuclear carrier USS Nimitz disappeared in the Pacific and reappeared December 6th, 1941, off the coast of Pearl Harbor. The final countdown is about to begin.
You are on board the USS Nimitz, the most advanced nuclear supership in the American arsenal, carrying a complement of 102 aircraft and 6,000 men. The Nimitz is on routine duty, guarding the waters of the South Pacific.
That Corsair's in real trouble.
Stand by to ring the bell. But within minutes, a bizarre, unexplainable phenomenon of nature will transport the Nimitz 40 years back in time. Back to the day of infamy. Back to the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. My God, look at that.
This is the captain. I'm speaking to every man aboard this ship. The storm has had some effect on time, as we know it. It created a portal, a door into another era. Today is December the 7th, 1941. We're about to fight a battle that was lost before most of you were born. This time, with God's help, it's going to be different.
There are forces in the universe which we're only now just beginning to understand. There are black holes in space, antimatter, curved space. Things that are as strange to us as electricity would have been to people in the Middle Ages.
Holy cow. It's the whole Japanese fleet.
Our reconnaissance plane has just taken pictures of something that hasn't existed for over 40 years.
What have you got? 2 Japanese zeros, sir.
Splash to zero.
What's happening here? Who are you people?
Oh, don't shoot! Back off! Don't shoot! Why don't you tell him what's going on here, Commander? You're an expert on what's going to happen tomorrow. Why don't you tell him about it, for God's sakes? Go on, tell him. We got nothing to lose.
Welcome to the paradox of time, when past and present become one, and history is actually changed.
We've got an incredible opportunity here. We know where all the mistakes are going to be made for the next 40 years, and you've got the power to correct them.
The final countdown. On December the 6th, 1980, the nuclear-powered attack aircraft carrier USS Nimitz, with a crew of 5,000 men and a strike force of 90 aircraft, was on a routine mission in the Pacific when it encountered a storm unlike any ever recorded and disappeared.
What have you got? 2 Japanese Zeros, sir. What? 2 trophy-class Mitsubishi A6Ms in original condition, complete with all markings. I mean, they look brand new, sir.
On December the 6th, 1980, the nuclear carrier USS Nimitz disappeared in the Pacific and reappeared December 6th, 1941, off the coast of Pearl Harbor. Kirk Douglas,
Six-wing recovery.
Martin Sheen, Catherine Ross, James Ferrantino, Ron O'Neill, and Charles Durning as Senator Chapman.
You shoot that in here, we're all going up.
The final countdown is about to begin.